Yeah, so my name is Father Ivan Torres. I was born and raised in Las Cruces, New Mexico, at 1992. Grew up there, went to the Conley Elementary, Lynn Middle School, Las Cruces High School, New Mexico State University, and then I was ordained a priest of Jesus Christ in 2020, June 19th, so 5 years this June. I'm currently the pastor out at Our Lord of Mercy in Hatch, and her mission of Our Lady of All Nations in Rincon, and then also the pastor of San Isidro in Garfield, and her missions of San Jose in Array, and Our Lady of Guadalupe in Hillsboro.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah.
What made you want to become a priest?
I really felt called as a senior in high school. I was helping out, leading some retreats. I'd been going to daily mass, helping out with catechism classes, and on a retreat I really felt God invite me to be a fisher of men, to join him, and to be as a priest. So I was blessed to feel him really invite me.
What was your home parish in Cruces?
The cathedral. Yeah, so I was born and raised at the cathedral. I was baptized there November 8th, 1992. I received my first Holy Communion there in the year 2000. I was confirmed there in 2008, April 29th, Feast of St. Catherine Siena. And then ordained a priest in that same cathedral in June 19th, 2020, like we said. So we'll see the date of my burial there as well.
At the cathedral?
At the cathedral, God willing.
Let's not plan that.
God willing,
Let
yeah.
that be far enough
One of these days.
And you wear a cassock. Why do you wear?
Yeah, that's a fun question. Now we're going to get a lot of views. The cassock is just the traditional garb for the diocesan priest, for the priesthood itself. Mm-hmm. And I was reading through the Directory of Life and Ministry of the Priest. It's a document put out by the Vatican, the Congregation of Clergy, now the Dicastery. And it was mentioning in there about, in its section on ecclesiastical or priestly garb, how the cassock is the normal dress for the priest, because it symbolizes unity of life. And so the cassock is one piece of material, it's one cloth. We know the black of the clerics is a symbol of our death. So St. Paul says, I live no longer I, but Christ lives in me. Right? Our collar is that sign of that purity with which we desire to live, yoked to Christ, wed to him and to his bride. And the cassock stands out because it's one cloth, so it's meant to symbolize the unity of the priest's life, how I don't have two different lives. I'm not a priest sometimes and not other times, but I'm one. And so there's one garment, kind of like Christ's seamless garment. Traditionally also has 33 buttons for the 33 years of Christ's life. So there's a lot of rich symbolism. It's very historic. It's also really comfortable. When I first came back to New Mexico as a priest and I was ordained, it's really hot here in the summer, so you wear shorts underneath and you got the nice wind in there. It's just, I find it really, really comfortable, really practical, and I find that it impacts people quite a bit. They really see you in a cassock and they see a priest. And that's my role, I believe, in a public place, is to be a witness to Christ.
So not only just a witness in word and deed, but visibly as well. Visibly,
yeah. The Holy Mother Church speaks about the priest and the religious and how they necessarily, in public, must dress as such. And one of the reasons she says that is because when you see a priest or religious, you're meant to see Christ, and you're meant to see a radical witness of eternity and what we're called to. And so it's one of the ways that we get to witness to, like, yeah, there's something more to this world just by living, by breathing, by walking into the grocery store and have everyone turn to you and be like, what is that? Well, who is that?
And they suddenly know, oh, it's a priest.
Yeah, that's right.
Father. So tell me about the faith community here. Tell me about your church, your parish, the people.
Yeah, it's a great gift. I was originally assigned to this parish community into the valley, the Hatch Valley, as soon as I was ordained a priest. So back in 2020, I was here about 2 months, and then circumstances changed in the parish with the pastor at the time, and so I was moved to Roswell, and I was there for another 10 months in my first year of priesthood. I was then moved back out here as the parochial administrator, and it's a great gift, I think, to start in a parish like this one, because the people are really generous, they're very gentle, they're very welcoming. It was a little shocking. I remember hearing all the time in seminary, you never change anything as a priest for the first year that you're there. And the people were, in their great generosity and reverence for the priest here, were constantly like, lo que sea, padre, lo que quieras hacer, like whatever you want to do, we know you'll change things anyway, so just change it now. Whatever you want is fine. And so it was a very, very shock to me. Like, there was just such a reverence to the priesthood and his role, the priest and his role in the community, that they almost rolled over too much. I was like, no, your voice matters too. Like, let's figure it out together. And they'd be like, whatever you want. I'd be like, no, whatever. What do you want? So it was a great gift. I think they were very generous in those kinds of ways. It's a migrant farming community for the most part. Those dynamics are shifting all the time, political landscape, cultural landscape, as farming itself changes. But that's the main components of those who live here. So it's a small community. Hatch, the last census said, had 1,600 people in it. So we're a small community, majority Spanish speaking, especially of the faithful, but a very active community. We have so much youth. I've celebrated, in the first 4 months of this year, we've been blessed to celebrate already 10 weddings here in this parish. So it's extraordinary. We'll have 45 confirmations soon and 50 first communions. We have a very active youth ministry, and it's been a gift.
How many masses do you say on Sunday?
So including the Vigil Mass, we're at 5, including Garfield and Array when we're out there.
So you do a Mass on Saturday for the Vigil, then
that's
2
correct.
on Sunday, or
3 Sunday,
here?
So 2 here on Sunday, 1 in Rincon, and then either Garfield or Array on Sunday afternoons.
Wow, you're driving everywhere. You're like,
yeah.
what did they call them in the Old West days? The circuit priest?
That's right, a little bit like that, yes.
We just need to get you a horse and some saddlebags.
I pretend that my car is a horse all the time.
So what are the greatest needs of your community?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I think that they're in a lot of ways going to be similar to other places. And so there's a general need for catechesis, for better understanding of the faith, for a generous enough love that wants to commit. I think we see a great problem with commitment in society at large. So even just like making the commitments to this weekly adoration hour or that something like this, like there's people who have love and desire, but some reason we're in this difficult phase in our life, I think culturally. But we also have particular needs, financial, intellectual, where we're not really the most educated schooling-wise, right? We're a community who's worked very hard most of their life, who's generous, who knows how to sacrifice. Mm-hmm. But if I pass out books for Christmas, I know some parishes like to do that. No one's going to read them. We have a different aspect of how that faith is going to be encountered and engaged. So I think those are some challenges for us that we get to work on and grow in. One of the main things as well is just the division between communities. When you have so many small communities that have different mission churches, but also differences of language. So that's something that I think a lot of the church in the U.S. is having to face. How do we worship together so that we can actually live together as well when we have these different languages?
Now, you talked about different groups. What about different faith groups? Like we drove down a couple of streets and there was like
there's a lot of churches in Hatch. Yeah.
See, in Valentine, Texas, it's one Catholic church. Most of the community is Catholic.
Yeah.
From San Elizario, where I'm from, we have Christian churches, but one big Catholic church. That's where I was baptized in October of 2020.
Nice.
I came into the church.
Wow.
What do you see as a way to bridge the gap between the different faiths and work together to make change in the community?
To bridge the gap between different faiths. That's a difficult piece, and I'm not sure that we really know what ecumenism is in our parts of the world. I recently visited a friend of mine who's in New York, and that's actually his job. He's the director of their Office of Ecumenical Relations. And it made sense over there when I was talking to all these different Orthodox patriarchs and these different large churches and denominations that have been there, and they're actually discussing different nuances of faith. It's an interesting thing here. What I think I found is I've really invested a lot in the community herself, so I do my best to go to village council meetings. We have a Hatch coalition that just tries to bring together nonprofits every month just to discuss what we offer, what is needed. I also do my best to try to go to school board meetings, my office manager and I, and so we do our best to participate in the school systems and wherever our people are at, and with our mayor and our villagers. And there I get to encounter some of the other faith leaders. And I think that's where we've kind of built a bit of a coalition, is just in the community herself, and especially with our youth. That's definitely one of the areas that we focus on the most here. And so just being in the schools, being where the kids are, because that's also where the family is, right? And so that's where we want to reach people. If
you could change one thing about the parish and one thing about Hatch, what would those be? If you want to answer those.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a fun question. This is where I should have prepared and watched your previous interviews, huh?
No, the questions are not
they're different questions. Yeah. All right. Yeah, I don't know what I would respond to that. I think that in a lot of ways, the things that we desire are building up in the parish in really beautiful ways. So there's not a whole lot there. I think we can always, as pastors, dream of more money to do the things we want. So like our church is too small for us, and it needs a lot of remodeling and a lot of help, right? So those are aspects that I could dream. I've dreamt plenty of what the church will look like when we have the money for it, and we're tackling those steps little by little and what's before the bigger church. And then in Hatch herself, I think that there would be some sort of desire for, maybe a real sense of our community. It's one of those difficult pieces where when you're in such a small community, sometimes you take it for granted, and so you lose the real community aspect. And so figure out how we establish a real sense of trust with each other in a real sense, a deep sense, or a dream, I guess, would be that the church would be that place again. We definitely are the largest church in the valley, especially by numbers. I mean, none of the other churches gather what we do every week, and close to those kinds of numbers. So I would love for that to be the reality in which this is where we gather. The calendar year of the village revolves around the saints, and it revolves around the life of grace and faith. So those are things that I think we can hope for and things that we're working towards.
Now let me ask you this. Growing up like I did in a farming community and being on a farm, you have a transient population of migrant farm workers who come in. How important is evangelization among those who are here for the season? And what can be done to bring them, because they work a lot, they work hard. And a lot of them will just relax on Sundays or sleep in or do whatever on that day off. What can we do to evangelize and bring them in, or bring Catholics who haven't been in Mass for a while in? What can we do for that?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's one that's been on the back of my mind since I've been here, but it's not been the most pressing aspect for us. And I think we're close to getting into tackling that. I really believe we first have to figure out our in-house piece, right? So I've got my own kids, and I've got my kids at my dinner table, so how do I feed them is kind of my first question. Like, these are my kids, now I can go out into the neighborhood and find out where all these other kids are, and how do I get to help them out? That's as a father, that's kind of how I've approached it, is how do I take care of my in-house pieces first, and those who are coming here willingly, and how do I strengthen them in their faith, give them the nourishment they need. And I think we're really close to this point in which they will be able to now, we can figure out as a community where we're going. But it is a difficult piece. Farm working is changing very much so. So our community is a lot less transitory than it used to be. Right. We have enough people that are settled here and they stay. And there are some people that will come in seasonally. And because of different laws and those things, it is very temporary. And unfortunately, they don't really have Sundays off at all either. And so they're generally just young men who come in without their families, and young men who come in to work. And so they're young men who are living in these large housing areas, and they're bussed back and forth to work every day or to go and buy groceries. And so they don't really have much of an opportunity at all to come to Mass, to seek the faith, and not necessarily much of an interest either, unfortunately. They're just here to work, make some money, and then leave. And they work pretty much 7 days a week.
So as the church as a whole, then, what would you say would be a good way to go out and share the faith or live your faith so others can see, like you in your cassock and me, how can I, let others see the faith that I have? Yeah.
In general, you mean? Not necessarily with those workers.
But in general.
Yeah, I think it's being present where people are. And so I think it's reclaiming the culture is a big piece that I think that I really firmly believe in. There's a lot of controversy. There's a bit of a puritanical bend to some of our Mexican or Hispanic Catholicism. And one of the ways that shows itself is like Halloween. Halloween is evil. Stay away from Halloween. Trick-or-treating is of the devil. And so that's been a big piece of just like preaching here. Is like, actually that's ours. It's All Hallows Eve. That's where the name comes from, and this is where it began. And like, let's reclaim it. Let's not just give it up. Let's not hide in our houses as Catholics, but let's claim it. Let's claim the culture. Let's bring what's true, good, and beautiful back into the culture. And so that's why I go to so many village meetings, to school board meetings. It's how are we there? Where are we? And how do I assist? So if there's ever anything they need, we're there. Right? If there's any big event, we try to be there. We have our youth group set up things for Dia de los Niños at the elementary school, so that we have games and activities, and the church is present there. for them. We have a club that meets at the high school every week at lunchtime. And so that's, I think, the best way is how do we just be present? How do we show up? Yeah.
I don't know the quote, but I read somewhere that sometimes the only sermon people hear is seeing what you do and how you do it.
Yeah, I think that's probably very true.
So if you had the ear of everyone in the world, as a Catholic priest, everyone's going to listen to you, what final words or what wisdom would you impart to them? What would you say if you could talk to the whole world?
I guess I'd want to say something like, Christ came that we may have life and have it to the full. And there is nowhere else that you'll feel the fullness of this life than when you live fully within his church. And that's all he desires for us. All of the moral law, the moral code, all of the rules, it's because he's created us, so he knows what it takes for us to flourish. And the entire goal of our Savior was to give us life to the full and to share with us that perfect joy. This is where that joy is lived and found. So come and live it.